this has been an exciting day for all of you. Some ups and downs, some new things that all of you experience and learn for the first time. But first and foremost, it's kind of a culmination of a series of different, events, talks, sessions, a lot of brainstorming, refining your slides and your pitch, and finally delivering it. So now that you've pitched, I wanted to talk about what happens next. For some of you, this may not be your first rodeo, so feel free to ignore most of what I'm saying. But I hope there is something in there that's either a nice message that you're hearing for the first time, or something that you always knew, but it doesn't. It's not necessarily bad to think about it, talk about it, because as a founder, you have so many things happening, and that you have to try and always focus. So. A little bit of introduction of myself. I'll keep it quick, but my career has been a little bit all over the place. In short, I qualified as a physician. I did my residency training in clinical pharmacology, then pivoted into, practiced for a bit, pivoted into pharma, worked in clinical research and development, and then in commercial marketing as well as in pharma. Then I decided to get an MBA. Got involved with a lot of founders and startups there, because you all always need business graduates. That's a joke, by the way, you don't, but anyway. And then since then I've been consulting for pharma clients of all sizes and stripes. And most recently I've started working on software tools and platforms specifically aimed at pharmaceutical knowledge work, so like insights, analytics, and data management, and those kind of things. Now that Gen AI is on the scene, and I've been, enough time has passed to kind of get a sense of what's possible, versus what should be done, rather than what can be done. I think I have a few ideas that I'm working on, which are really promising. And then there is another venture which I'm representing here today, which I will talk about at the end. But in short, what I wanted to kick off this with was on a personal note. I remember when I was at the University of Michigan in the US, that's where I did my MBA. And I got to collaborate with a lot of people outside of the business school, because I wanted to do that kind of networking and basically find people in different disciplines across the university. So you have your biomedical sciences, material sciences, engineering, medical, all sorts of people. And I was able to associate myself with 4 startups at one time, all kind of in different stages of building their business. And they were more than happy to have my business brains for free at that point. The thing that I do want to mention here is that while I finished my MBA, I moved on, I got a job. I had to, in the US, to have a proper work visa. I could not just work on my venture. But it did keep in touch with all of these people, and practically all of them went into a conventional type of role after that. They didn't, their business and ventures kind of fell off by the wayside. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just basically because pitching and having an idea and then building it into a business are two very different things, as all of you either know already or are kind of discovering. And that is what I want to talk about for today, because that difference between the two is the most critical piece. So I'm going to try and cover in 30-ish minutes four ideas. Again, none of these are like path-breaking or things you may not have already heard, but they just bear repeating. They just, you have to keep reminding yourself of these things, because your day-to-day is going to consume most of your attention when you start building something. So the first one is the business is not the product, right? Sounds like a truism, but I'll get to why it is really important to understand. So you already have the product or the service. That's where you as the founder live. And that is a success critical thing, but that's not the only thing, obviously, that's necessary. We also have to think about the market position, as you probably have already been doing in various ways. You've done the due diligence for your pitch, you have created a story, and now you've pitched it. The important thing to know is that that's kind of the first step in a series of different market positions and financial models that you will create until you finally either exit it, license it out, right, or IPO maybe. See, but the idea is that it's something you have to continuously keep refining, evolving, be ready to revisit it anytime new information shows up. When the market shifts, when the competition changes at each of these points, there is something you have to go back to and make sure that you're still on the right track. Next is the team. This is something I have seen again quite a lot of founders struggle with. One is the propensity to get into an I can do it myself trap. And I don't mean by that you individually. I know you have a set of co-founders, most of you, and you have this tight-knit group with whom you're very comfortable working, and having a innate desire for control as well as trying to maximize the money you have. You tend to not want to bring more people on. You don't always go out and seek that external advice or get a new team member. Even when you raise capital, you start building headcount, you can be a little bit more stingy than you need to be. So think of that, right? The I can do it mindset can take you to a bit of a distance, but not always. There's also the opposite trap I've seen people fall into, which is becoming too aloof from their team members or drawing very hard silos when they're making decisions. And that can be, again, something that has to be avoided. I remember when I was working with a startup founder in the US, he had come up with this really innovative yet simple design of a device that could be used to administer implantable contraceptives in women in low resource settings. So like sub-Saharan African market, that's where he came up with this idea and was meaning to kind of make it a product for that market. And I've been working with him to help him on the commercialization plan, the financial modeling, like who could be our funders and donors, etc. I was working with I was the one pitching at competitions, etc. for him, and I happened to chat with one of my business school friends at some random social event, and in our talk I learned that she just came back after spending 3 weeks in Africa, doing the market research exactly for the same founder, and I had no clue. Like he had never even introduced the two of us. So I'm sure none of you have your you have your eyes on the ball, but this kind of siloing can happen. Maybe on a smaller scale, but you should always watch out for that. Then story, obviously an important thing everybody knows, but it could also be the most overlooked facet, and that is especially with technical founders, when you're looking at building things that have a very highly scientific element to it, you can sometimes forget that everyone else you're talking to may not have the same background, may not have the same understanding to grasp exactly what it is that you're doing. And your story needs to be in the language that different types of people can understand. So having those multiple versions of your story is extremely important, and telling it to people in a way that engages them is the other important thing. Now here, it can be a slippery slope, especially with purely technology like software-based products, because there's a fake it till you make it type of thing in Silicon Valley, and that's not without merit. That's become like kind of a cliche at this point. So be careful about the story that you're telling people, and I would bring it back to the story you tell yourself about your venture, because that's where you have to be truest, you have to be the most honest, and you have to be your harshest critic, right? So having that story for yourself that's well grounded in facts and reality, even when you're pitching to a different sets of investors or customers, is extremely important, and always make sure that you don't forget that bit. So perspective shift, that's the next thing I'm going to talk about. It may sound a little bit nebulous, even though it's quite obvious that startups are not like big organizations, institutions, etc. But so that it becomes really important to understand the trade-offs between working in a startup environment versus working in a established business, because before it's too late and you start feeling like, oh, maybe this is not for me. So I mean, you already know that startups are much leaner, less structured, and you kind of get to be your own boss. That's amazing. Everybody wants it. But therefore, I want to actually talk about the potential downsides of not having organizational layers, not having decision-making hierarchy, and not having a steady revenue stream. So when you're making decisions in a startup, basically every choice you're making could potentially make or break your venture, right? So even if you have to take decisions relatively quickly, they can have big implications. So you need to have very clearly established risk benefit and cost benefit frameworks ready to pass most of your decisions through. And of course, while doing this, you need to make sure that you're bringing your team along so that all the core people in the business are aligned on these decisions. Secondly, the roles. Now you're practically heading everything or working on all departments. You're practically making decisions across the board. But at some point, it starts making sense to delegate more and more. And again, we're going back to that trap of saying, "Oh, I can do this. Why should I spend money? I need to be the one looking at every single thing in this particular decision." But at some point, that starts getting diminishing returns, and exchanging some cash for maybe a kind of a business platform that helps you not have to worry about payroll and HR and accounting or taxes and all of that can be a very good investment. Or bringing on an external advisor or consultant to focus on one part of your process can again be a very good payoff. So yes, you're kind of playing multiple roles, wearing multiple hats, but you don't always have to, and always remember that that's an option. Last but not least, the culture is basically what you're doing, what you're setting it to be, and I'm sure all of you have basically realized that or have that understanding that once it becomes a big enough company, the way it's been run, the culture which it's run with is going to be solidified into it, right? And the problem or the main takeaway, what I have for you here today is we tend to forget that on a day-to-day basis. When we're taking those decisions, maybe sometimes we decide to cut a corner and think, it's innocent, and many times it is, and maybe that's the trade-off that you have to do. But again, keep in mind that people around you, your team members, your employees, they are learning from it. You're setting a precedent, and that can, automatically become a part of your culture. It's a process of natural selection. So you will wake up one day and you will find at the head of a company with an established culture, and then you might feel, oh, how did it get that way? So try to avoid that trap. Next, I want to talk about the resource landscape. Now, I think this is the one which you all already probably know everything about. So again, just want to recap the points that try not to forget when you're busy with everything. Mentors and advisors. I think in the opening keynote, the speaker mentioned a personal board. I have a similar idea. What I envision it, and I have been trying to build in my own life through my network, is a panel of advisors. So you don't necessarily try and find people who are always exactly who have walked the same path that you are trying to walk now, because that's always good to have. You need such people, but you should also have people in your life and advisors you can go to who have vastly different experiences, but who have spent enough time in the industry or in working or in building businesses or in a specific technical area of specialization. Because building this kind of a jigsaw puzzle of advisors, I think, helps you achieve a complete picture when it comes to seeking advice. And it's also about how you ask for this advice, instead of say asking, I have this problem, help me find a solution. You should rather go and say, what are your thoughts about this? Or just tell them a little bit about what's happening and see what their thoughts are. And kind of get them to give you their own genuine inputs, because no one's situation, no one's problems are going to be exactly the same, and a copy-pasted advice is in most cases bad advice. Peer networks, again, the takeaway here is that diversify. I'm sure you all have been working on building your networks. Try not to focus again too deeply into a specific specialty of people when building your network. Obviously, you don't want to be a part of an echo chamber where you just talk to similarly minded founders or people with the same type of scientific background, and then keep hearing the same things that you already have built up and help solidify them. Rather, spread it out, meet more people, meet more diverse people, find networks that have nothing to do with, say, business or technical stuff. Maybe they have like shared languages, shared culture, or hobbies, or whatever. And many a times, someone who might helping you with the business might be someone you just met with as a person with a common hobby. Institutional support, again, you guys are here, you know how important it is. The one thing I would say is try to be always 1 or 2 steps ahead of when you need that support. So instead of getting to a point that, oh, I've done what I can with my available resources and I cannot go any further before I raise any money or raise more money, start thinking about that 6 months, a year in advance, right? Start sowing the seeds for whatever support you need 6 months to 12 months in the future. And that way you can retain the momentum of what you're building and not have to take a pause or reset your focus from building the business to raising funding or finding your next grant or anything like that, and just keep the momentum going. Strategic early customers is, again, something it's always good to cultivate as long as it kind of fits with what you're doing. Most tech, consumer goods, services kind of businesses typically can work in this way, where they get early strategic customers who they can work with to help refine the product while you're building it. And that is much better than just building something in isolation and taking it and then testing it out in the market. So if it is a possibility, if it fits with your business idea, always make sure that you're working to get these kind of resources set up. Right, so part 4, last part, I'm going to summarize everything I said, but just give it a little bit more kind of practical day-to-day spin. So what can you start doing from tomorrow if you're not already doing this? First is translate your story for different types of audience. Bring your different vocabulary, different examples, different emphasis depending on who you're talking to, right? For example, investors want to see exit opportunities. Customers want to see how you're going to save them costs. Regulators see risk, right? So you have to have your story crafted differently for each of these types of audience. Secondly, spread out in your networking efforts, build relationships. Before you need them, build them in a diversified manner, and keep adding to your network of advisors. Thirdly, get kind of comfortable deciding with incomplete information. And I know all of you have faced this, you know what it is and have to deal with it every day. What kind of a mental technique I use when faced with such scenarios is that I put the option of not making any decision as an option in the basket I'm choosing from, right? Because not making a decision has a cost, and that cost can be very acute and big in a small business setting compared to when you're in a big institution. So have it there when you're making that decision. Finally, protect your time for big picture thinking, because this is very easily skipped. Day-to-day stuff consumes you, and you don't leave enough bandwidth for stepping back, thinking big picture, or just asking yourself what your next step is going to be. What do you want to do with this business? And even if it's very clear, it's always good to refresh that from time to time. So with that, I will leave you with its final thoughts. Don't expect a straight line journey, but don't be afraid of the void. I remember seeing the squiggly line picture in this morning's talk, so exactly the same thing. Keep the final destination in sight, and the next milestone will kind of show itself. And invest in building that team and support structure, because together you will always know what your next step is and you will be confident about it. So thank you all for your time and attention.